You probably know about Hiroshima. You might have heard of Chernobyl. But what if I told you there was a secret Soviet program that detonated not one, not two, but 122 nuclear bombs within their own borders? Not for war, but for peace. Welcome to the Peaceful Nuclear Explosions Program, a Cold War relic buried beneath radioactive soil, forgotten documents, and a dream too big for the Earth to hold. Tonight, we're traveling through time and silence into the strange story of how the USSR tried to dig, build, and reshape nature itself using nuclear fire, and why no one talks about it anymore. In 1965, the Soviet Union launched a program called Program Number 7, Peaceful Nuclear Explosions, or simply PNE. The goal? To use nuclear bombs as tools to carve canals, mine resources, and even seal off runaway fires underground. No enemies, no armies, just explosions for infrastructure. It wasn't as strange as it sounds. In the US, a similar idea was already underway. Project Plowshare. Both superpowers believed the atom could do more than kill. It could build. And so, with white lab coats instead of camouflage, Soviet engineers began planting bombs in deserts, swamps, and steppelands. In 1971, deep in the frozen Komi Republic, the Soviets buried 3 15-kiloton nuclear devices beneath a swamp. The plan was bold. Blow open a trench deep enough to become the first link in a massive canal meant to reverse the flow of Siberian rivers and irrigate the deserts of Central Asia. They called it Project Taiga. The bombs were detonated in perfect formation. The ground heaved, but did not scream. Trees were flung into the sky like matchsticks. A crater appeared, 1,300 feet long, 330 feet wide, and then silence. On the surface, it looked like a success. No major radioactive leaks. The soil stayed mostly contained, a perfect oval carved into the earth. But below the optimism, whispers began over the next 2 decades. The Soviet Union carried out 122 peaceful nuclear blasts at 115 different sites. In Uzbekistan, they used a nuclear bomb to seal a runaway natural gas well. In Kazakhstan, they used them to create storage caverns for gas and oil. In remote forests, they tested the idea of blowing up mountainsides to redirect rivers. And sometimes, they just tested because they could. Each bomb had a name, a yield, a purpose. Most were between 10 and 150 kilotons, some even larger than Hiroshima. Maps of the Soviet Union from that era, if you could access them, looked like constellations of craters, each one glowing on satellite imagery. And yet, if you ask most people today, they've never heard of it. On paper, the program seemed genius. Why dig for decades when one explosion could do it in seconds? But nature doesn't bend easily. Crater lakes became stagnant and radioactive. Soil compositions shifted unexpectedly. Some detonations caused surface breaches, leaking fallout into the air. Traces of radiation were detected as far away as Sweden. One test caused side cratering, a term meaning the explosion vented horizontally, not vertically. Another ignited in underground. Methane Pocket and Project Taiga? That beautiful oval crater in the frozen woods? It filled with water, but not flow. Instead of a canal, they created a puddle. Still radioactive, useless, the USSR rarely admitted failure. Official reports declared the program mostly successful. Numbers were redacted, warnings were buried, and test sites were simply left behind. Old signs faded. Radiation markers disappeared under snow and moss. Locals built homes not far from crater rims, unaware of what slept below. And then came Chernobyl in 1986. When Reactor 4 exploded, everything changed. Public trust evaporated. Environmental recklessness was no longer a quiet sin, it was global. Peaceful nuclear explosions were quietly shelved. The teams disbanded. The dream ended not with a bang. But a budget cut today. Most of these test sites are unmarked. Some are forested over. Some are still dangerous. And some, like the atomic lake in Kazakhstan, have become strange tourist attractions. You can still walk the rim of Project Taiga's crater. If you bring a Geiger counter, it will tick gently. Not lethal, but not clean. In 2024, a team of scientists retested the soil. Cesium-137 and cobalt-60 still present, still active, and in old Soviet archives, now mostly declassified, there are blueprints. For a canal that was never built, a dream carved in craters, measured in megatons, they called it peaceful. They called it progress, but 122 nuclear bombs left behind more than craters. They left behind questions about control, about ambition, and about what happens when science forgets to ask why. You sit now quietly, just as the planners once did, looking over the still water of a man-made lake that glows on satellite maps, and wondering, what did they really build here? A canal? A future? Or a lesson etched into radioactive soil? Thank you for walking with me tonight. If this story stirred something in you, like it did in the ground all those years ago, go ahead and leave a like, and if you'd like to hear more cold war ghosts and forgotten histories whispered back to life, hit subscribe. Until next time.